Live for the people out there. For the people in here. For the people out there. Ooh, whoop.
Whoa.
Yeah, that kind of goes right through the fucking microphone. That's the one thing. I got to get a new arm for my microphone. I've been wanting to get one. Blue, the people that make the microphone that I'm using, they make an arm that is all encased, and it just has slides, and it's a really nice setup, and I want one. But I do not have one yet. Yet. That is the operative. Yet. But let's get this thing started. Holly. Good morning, everyone. It's a morning again. It's Groundhog Day. No,
it's not, because I've not horribly burned myself this morning like I did the last time we did a morning show.
Yeah. Although Holly's healing up nicely from that. Yeah. We decided to do the show probably until the new year at least. We'll be doing the show on Saturday mornings or earlier in the day on Saturday. Simply because Holly's not working those days. It works out well for me. And it doesn't coincide with things that need to get done during the week. Holly's hectic work schedule. That's always fun. But hoping that we can keep it on Saturdays for the time being. And then after the new year, we're going to take a look at it based on some things that'll be changing in Holly's world. And we will go from there. We'll let everyone know what the deal is with that. But until then, this is going to be the day. Except you're going on vacation 1 week, correct?
Yeah, so there'll be one Saturday I'll miss.
Okay.
Which will be the 21st.
Okay.
Unless I can figure out some kind of
to do it over the Wi-Fi.
How to do it.
Hey, if you got good enough Wi-Fi on the boat.
On location. Well, I don't even know if I'll be on the boat at that point, because it'll be the day I come home.
Oh.
And then that's the solstice day, so I think so I don't know. I don't know how that's all going to play out right now. But
yeah, we'll figure it out.
But
it's been we've had to have a couple of shows go by the wayside. Not like we haven't thrown the topics out or anything, but due to the fact that we just had some scheduling conflicts, so Holly and I decided, because we both want to continue doing the show, that Saturdays would be the best time for now. And yes, it's slip into the night. We'll be doing it earlier in the day. Hey, I mean, if you're listening in the UK, it is the nighttime just about. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's slipping into the night somewhere. The way I look at it.
Yeah. So we basically have to have practical matters for what works for us in order to do the show.
Yeah, and most people listen on Anchor anyway, and they listen whenever.
Yeah,
so it doesn't really fucking matter. Excuse me. Ooh, gas. Yee. So yeah, and Holly wanted to talk about reptilians. Now, I myself, I'm more of a fan of the comical idea of reptilians among us. I was a huge fan of V back in the 80s. Was that Mark Singer? Was that Mark Singer?
I never watched that show.
You never saw V?
No.
God. V. Let's see if I can find that shit. V. There we go. Right there. V. Who was in that shit? Who was in that shit? It doesn't say. Does it say? Nah, 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 nah. I want to say it was Mark Singer. Go to IMDb. Go straight to IMDb. Oh, no, they're showing me the new one. Because it came out again, too. Later on.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the idea of reptilian aliens. One of the reasons why I want to talk about it is because it is becoming more culturally. It has always been to some degree culturally impactful, and this kind of idea of a reptilian alien race that's involved with humanity. And then there's been various iterations of what that kind of concept has looked like.
Yep.
So, one of my thoughts for today is we're just going to kind of talk about what some of those ways this concept has been kind of worked into our popular culture.
Well, one of my favorite things ever that happened. I used to be a faithful listener of the Opie and Anthony show, and they had Louis C.K. on one time, and Donald Rumsfeld called in
Really?
to the show, and the entire time Donald Rumsfeld was on the show, Louis C.K. kept asking him, "But you're a lizard man, right?"
Right. Yep. Yep. Because that's part of one of the current conspiracy theories out there is that our government is largely these lizard people that are shapeshifters ruled by a full-blooded alien reptilian elite, and that they essentially control all the government banking systems. They're like the Illuminati. They're in all the major families of power, and
I'm sure Alex Jones has touched on this a few times.
Yeah.
God damn it, Holly! It's the fucking reptilian Illuminati agenda.
And one of the big proponents of this idea is some kind of British journalist or writer, David Icke. And so he's been putting forth this kind of conspiracy theory that throughout time, the Earth has been populated by these either invaded or they're some kind of descendants of dinosaurs or something, and they are really the hierarchy of the power structure of the planet, which are really these these Draco reptilian reptoid beings, which have then subsequently gone through and started making crossbred hybrids with humanity, and that in fact some people are actually unknowingly reptilian hybrids, which I also think is a really interesting concept of how can I could be reptilian and I don't even know it.
I don't understand that whole concept. It gets really wacky if you ask me. Now there are some interesting things to be pointed out here, and I don't know if this relates to the whole reptilian thing, but when it comes to the pineal gland, or the third eye, if you will, what is known as the third eye, in humans, it's a gland, but in reptiles, it has a retina, and it's photosensitive. So it's almost like an actual fucking eyeball, which is very interesting. Now I don't know how much that relates to the whole reptilian thing. Do the reptilian people have retina on theirs? I don't fucking know. I don't know much about the reptilian people. There's not much biology, I don't think, in the textbooks as to how they work. But I think I think it's a fucking great little conspiracy bullshit. Listen, I remember having the flu once. I had the flu, this horrible case of the flu, and I was in bed for days. And I just listened to podcast after podcast. And I listened to this Clive Owen guy, he's still around, talk about fucking the reptilian agenda. I listened to this shit for 2 days straight. It is the most entertaining shit on the planet to listen to these people talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Now, I don't buy into it. I think it's, but I think it's a fun and entertaining story. Like to go down and, oh yeah, today let's think about reptilians in our government.
Oh, absolutely. I think at some level that it's like absolutely like bypassing some maybe really bad things that people have done, and instead saying that it's some kind of other entity doing behind some of this really bad stuff.
Right.
You know, they are accused of
You
being
mean
the
you mean
source.
as a way of being the patsy, so to speak, or
Oh,
like the reason why everything's bad.
right.
Yeah.
You know, like I doing the research for the show, seeing them blamed for the Holocaust, for you know the manipulation of money and creating so much poverty. You know, a lot of unsolved mysteries, and it's like, okay, well, there's this mysterious entity that is really preying on people. It's like, well, show me one.
Yeah.
There's a no, all except
They'll,
although apparently
and they'll
Justin
put out
Bieber,
videos of like, well, look at this. Look at
right?
this clearly shows that they're a reptile. Does it? I mean, half of them, I look at them, I'm like, does it? It doesn't show really anything. And then with the things that they can do with like Photoshop and video editing nowadays, I don't buy anything that I see at face value. I I harkened back to one UFO video that I found where I looked at it and I was like, that looks pretty decent. I was like, wow, that's interesting. But I was like, even in my going, oh, that looks interesting, I'm like, that's a little too good.
Mm-hmm.
So I shoot it over to Phil Poling over at Para Breakdown, and I'm like, Phil, take a look at this. What do you think? And he immediately comes back, like I think it was like 10 minutes, 20 minutes later, and he's like, oh yeah, it's total bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what? Like how could you tell? And he's like, because if you go to the still frame images of the video, the image is completely clear, and no craft moving at that speed would come across on image at a single frame that clear. There would be motion blur.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean it. The things that they can do now with video editing is amazing. So anything that I see when it comes to like reptilians or that they are among us, are they? Are they really? I don't know if they are.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a way
To just throw blame.
Just to throw blame and make a fictional entity accountable for some bad stuff that people need to be accountable for. Which is, or that if it also is just like a smear tactic for, I don't like someone like Donald Rumsfeld. I don't like what he stands for. Well, he's a reptilian.
Right.
I don't like the British aristocracy. Well, they're reptilians.
Right.
They're, you kind of at a certain point need to kind of do better than that. Not saying that, certain families and bloodlines having tons of money, there's definitely problems with those power structures, but just minimizing it to, okay, but it's because they're an secret alien race.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for me.
Yeah. No, I don't know that I don't know that one has anything to do with the other. And like I think that it's just like the whole reptilian thing. I think it's a fantastical way for people to look at things. I think it's like like you were saying, it's a way for people to give the dark power structures an even like darker, secret truth, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. Like, oh, they're reptilians. They're a secret society of reptilians that control the underworld of everything. Nah, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, it makes him sound like the Sith from Star Wars, right?
Oh, it's worse than that because it's
They're
like there's only two there are of them motherfuckers. I mean, according to this, like they are at every level of our government. They're everywhere. Like you're passing them on the fucking street all the time. Or like you were saying, you could be a hybrid and don't even know it. Like how?
I don't know. Do you have Rh
Like
negative blood?
wouldn't I
Like a
piss
certain
and
percentage of the
wait a minute?
population
I'm
has
a
Rh
fucking
negative blood.
I'm a reptilian. Wouldn't I piss and shit out of the same hole? I mean,
Well, no, because you're a hybrid,
oh,
right?
hybrid.
You're a hybrid, so not necessarily.
So I get an asshole and a penis.
Right?
And I
Well, I
can
mean,
stun it.
I think I sent you like the reptilian criteria. Wait a minute, let me look for that.
Oh, this criteria?
Yeah,
I missed that.
it's like how to know if you're a
The
reptilian.
checklist?
It was,
Oh.
and it's like people with light eyes, which is like, or if you have Rh negative blood,
Mm-hmm.
Or have family members like a parent with Rh negative blood.
Mm.
It becomes like very.
If your parents lived in the sewers.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, and I didn't do a whole lot of research on it. Like, I really should. Like, I should do like the research to see where this all started, where it began. Like, who was the first person to say like there were reptilians? And is
Yeah.
it closely associated to when that fucking V show came out in the 80s?
I'm not sure, but certainly that David Icke guy has been someone who's really been pushing this. And I think people who are interested in like vampire or like kind of dark culture
Mm-hmm.
kind of are interested in it because they are purported to not only just like eat human blood and brains, but also feed off negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the most interesting thing about this is there's an acceptance in this kind of theory that not only are there the humanoid crossbreeds that can just look like regular humans, and then there's like these shape-shifting true full-blooded ones. There may be like an interdimensional aspect or
What the
species.
fuck?
I know. And so they are in like the fourth dimension, feeding off human emotions in the third dimension. I'm like, what? Wait, what? What? Explain to me how that
How many
really
fucking
works.
dimensions they got?
I don't
How
know.
many dimensions you all got?
I thought the fourth dimension was time.
That's fucking wacky.
It's extremely the more you like look into it, the more you're like there's a lot of interesting things really being said um at the base of this, that it gets crazier and crazier the more you
The more you dig into it,
absolutely. But it's
it's
things
like an
like
onion. There's many layers.
mhm,
Many layers.
yeah. Um and there's this kind of putting it
To
out
the
there that
reptilian agenda.
yes, and that they are behind the gray aliens, the little ones that that with the big eyes that are the more familiar type of aliens, and that they're kind of like they're alien overlords for those little gray aliens. They are like behind the abductions and harvesting, um, and the little gray aliens are just kind of like their underlings, or maybe their allies or
They're the
something.
Oompa Loompas,
Yeah, they are the reptilians, Oompa Loompas,
and
Chris.
we're the fucking chocolate factory.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking Willy Wonka, the fucking
Right.
reptilians in their hat.
Yes. And so kind of this David Icke fellow and people who are like kind of promoting this reptilian idea are saying that cultures through time have had like demigods or gods that are reptilian like, and it's not just
Oh yeah.
and you find that in Mesoamerica. You have Quetzalcoatl, who's like this winged serpent, and you have in
almost like a dragon god.
yeah, you have lots of stories of dragons. You have stories of the Naga in India. You have stories of ancient Egypt had a very like large evil reptile creature too. And then in the Sumerian times, the Nephilim are sometimes described um, as being reptilian like. So it says the common signs, according to some anonymous source, is a predominance of green or hazel eyes that change color like a chameleon, and also blue eyes. True red or reddish hair. So apparently, you need anybody who's a ginger in your family. You need to be suspicious of them.
Fucking wipe out the Irish.
But that's like half my family, so
That's it,
could be
Frank
me.
Smith. Frank Smith, you're done. You're done. You're dead to me.
Keen sight or hearing. ESP, UFO connections.
Richard, you live too close to Ireland. You're dead to me.
UFO connections, love of space and science, piercing eyes. So not just light colored eyes, but they are very, abnormally piercing. And this one, a sense of not belonging to the human race. Psychic abilities, unexplained scars on the body. And I don't know how that has to do with being a reptilian, but it's
that's
cited.
how they get the suit on and off.
Yeah, maybe that's it. A capability to disrupt electrical appliances. Again, I don't know how that has anything to do with it, but
I don't either.
But those are kind of the things to watch out for. And then another list had if you are Rh negative, because that is supposed to be a sign of like the alien genetic interference in your bloodline.
Interesting. This is all new news to me.
Really?
Well, yeah, I'm not. I don't keep up on the reptilian shit.
Well, I don't really either. I just did research for the show.
Yeah, no, I didn't on purpose because, like, I like it as an entertaining subject.
Yes.
Although, like, as I've said, like during the show, like I should go back and look into like the origins of this shit, like where this started in popular culture as we see it today. I'm not talking about like the legends, because we could go back to, like you were saying, like the Naga and all this other shit to point out to this stuff in early history. I'm talking about in popular culture today. Where did this fucking whole thing rise?
Right.
Where did it come out of? Did it just start with fucking ick?
Yeah, well, I mean, he wrote a book called Children of the Matrix, How the Interdimensional Race Has Controlled the World for Thousands of Years and Still Does. Which, I mean, wouldn't you think that if that was really true and he was all of a sudden just outing some kind of interdimensional evil lizards, that he'd be offed by now?
Yeah, I mean, Christ, look at how many people on that Clinton body list there are. I mean, shit.
So we can draw.
If the Illuminati was really happening and David Icke was onto something, I'm pretty sure they would have fucking taken care of that problem by now.
Right. So, and by all means, if I am not making fun of anyone who like really strongly feels like they've had interactions with evil reptilian beings, like if you have like, I think you should speak up.
If you have, I think there's a hotline.
There could be a hotline. Drop a dime. Stop at reptilian crime.
It could be possible. I don't know. Hey, and I've said before, like if people have experiences, whatever, and I'm not trying to belittle people's experiences. I think what they may be experiencing is not quite what they think it is. I think their perception may be off.
Oh, okay.
when it comes to that type of thing. Now, I could be totally wrong, and I've said that many, many times when it comes to this stuff. I tend to not think that I am when it comes to reptilians.
Mhm.
But I implore, if somebody can prove me wrong on this one, I'm more than willing to take a look at the evidence. Somebody's got the suit with the reptilian. If somebody is a reptilian, they want to take off the suit, I'm down.
We would be really
I'm down.
happy to have some legitimate.
A legitimate reptilian.
Yes, I'm going to create some fiction here that the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing is due to his involvement with the British royalty, who are apparently lizard people.
The lizard people.
And Prince Andrew, who was at Jeffrey Epstein's house and now has had
Listen,
a
he doesn't
disastrous.
sweat. He said he doesn't sweat. That means he's got to be a reptilian, right?
Could be. I mean, I haven't seen that many sweaty reptilians running around, or reptiles for that matter.
I don't sweat. Fuck you.
Right there.
That's it. He's a fucking goddamn reptilian. The whole bunch of them. Him, the Queen, Prince Charles.
Right. So,
Not Harry, though.
You don't think Harry? He's too cool.
Yeah, Harry's all right. Harry's not a reptilian. The rest of them, fuck them.
There's other conspiracies about that,
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I'd really like to know the early beginnings of this whole thing. I'd like to do like have an in-depth report, like a fucking Dateline NBC.
Mm-hmm.
The beginnings of the reptilian agenda.
Right.
Dun dun dun. When we return.
And when I did my research, I found that there is the potential for good reptilians out there, not just like the evil, like soul.
Oh yeah, well they explored that in the V show too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, two people. One of them falls in love with a human. They have a baby, and it's a half reptilian, half human thing. And that's why I say, like, I wonder if this whole thing like really started around that fucking V show in the 80s.
I don't know.
Like if that's when the whole the surge with this thing after people saw that bullshit. If they went right over the deep end, because that's the way that a lot of this stuff happens.
Right. Yeah.
The very first sighting of a chupacabra was from, I think it was a woman. I don't know if it was a woman or a guy. I can't remember now. Who had just seen the movie Species.
Mm-hmm.
And the original sighting report of the chupacabra is like almost, exactly like the creature from that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always curious when something like this, when I look into something like this, how did this happen? Where did it start? Did it start with something else in popular culture that was huge, and then just bled over and became something completely different? And for people who want to say, hey, you can trace it back to ancient legend. You can trace just about fucking anything back to ancient legend. There's fucking ant people in ancient legend, for fuck's sake. So, I mean, to me, that those arguments don't hold a lot of water, because there are so many legends about so many different things, and people like to cherry pick them. Mm-hmm. Much like people like to cherry pick the Bible. Because in the Bible, it used to be like a fucking sin to eat meat on the wrong fucking day. For fuck's sake. Like, how could that possibly be a thing?
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Bearded Picker, who says that he was a hybrid once, but got better.
I popped that comment up earlier.
Oh, you did? I didn't see it.
Yeah. I give Bearded Picker his props. He's always welcome on the show. I've given him I told him I'd fucking bring him on the 40 and slip. He thoroughly beats the shit out of Steve on a regular basis, which I'm very happy about. Very happy. And somebody sent Steve a Sweetwater Legend coffee mug.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
His message to me, you're an asshole.
Oh my. Well, I hear that sunning your asshole is new
that's the
age
new thing.
therapy.
It's better than bleaching your asshole. I mean, I don't know.
Be careful, you know, put some sunscreen on that.
I just want to see that line of people with their fucking legs up in the air, spreading their butt cheeks while the fucking sun rises.
Well, you know what? We could also loop this back to the topic is that, you know, reptiles are cold-blooded. They need to sun themselves.
They gotta sun their buttholes.
Yeah, their whole bodies.
This is why people are now sunning their assholes. They're reptilians.
They're reptilians. They need to warm their
cold-blooded
bodies up.
Is to warm their cold assholes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that I don't know that that's the case. I do wonder if these reptilians need like a heat rock or something, or like an electric blanket. Like, how do they make it? Can any of them live in like New York or up here where we're at?
Like, I don't know. I mean, if they're descendants of dinosaurs, there's some theories that some dinosaurs were actually warm-blooded.
Well,
so there may be some. Huh?
They have feathers.
Well, some of them.
There's no feathered people running around.
Well, interestingly enough, we can explore that on another show, but there are reports of bird people.
Bird people. Now, see, I'd be more down with bird people.
Like the blue avians, which is a whole nother subsect of very entertaining alien life form. The blue avians.
That's interesting.
Or possibly they're not actually even aliens, they're interdimensional beings.
Why does everything got to be a fucking interdimensional being nowadays? The fucking Doc Johnson and his Bigfoot bullshit with fucking interdimensional Zorth Bigfoot. Why? Why does it have to be interdimensional? Why is that the newest thing? I need to understand that. I need to understand these things about people. You know, when the guy called me to talk to me about Tim Fasano, the reporter, for the obituary. I was like, dude, I've always said, excuse me, that if anybody wants to do a really good documentary, do it on the people that fucking, you know, look for Bigfoot, or, you know, don't do it on the fucking subject of Bigfoot itself. Do it on the people that look for him. Because these people, I mean, by and large, these people, they get pretty fucking wacky, and they just go to these very strange places. And we've talked about it on my show quite a bit, my other show, the 40 and Slip, that these things become so cultish. Like the whole thing with Matt Johnson out in I think it's Oregon, I think he's at, with the interdimensional Bigfoot now that's healing people. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That I have not heard about.
Oh yeah. And they're showing videos of this now, and it's becoming a whole thing. It's cultish. It's a fucking cult.
Yeah, and you know, it's in like the new age groups, the reptilian, kind of this reptilian conspiracy stuff gets looped into people who are narcissistic or psychopathic, and it's like, well, they're really a reptilian, and it's like, okay, slow your roll.
Yeah, like how did we go from here to there?
You can't just label someone's like bad or deviant, like psychosis, on them being an alien.
Your line between point A and point B took a fucking left turn at Albuquerque.
And or you can't really, again, point out people who don't follow your belief system of like shiny angels and mystical healings, and if they don't go that way and they're too science based, all of a sudden they become some cold-blooded psychopathic reptilian infiltrated personality.
Well, yeah, and it's an easy way, like you were saying earlier in the show, it's an easy way to give an enemy or the bad guy an even more sinister background or backstory or
Right.
underlying theme, whatever the case may be. It gives it a shadow of some other thing, and I think that's the whole thing that's appealing to these people that get into these groups that believe in this stuff. I think it gives them that. It almost puts like a more of a cloak and dagger look at the world.
Correct. And I don't want to discourage people from using this as a story to explain good and evil, because we've been doing that for thousands of years. But I think that it's important that without like real evidence that you keep this as a story of a kind of like that mythic battle between good and evil. And but also understand that, like, there are all kinds of reptilian species legitimately on the planet that are part of the ecosystem and that are a necessary part of the ecosystem and survive. And they are not, snakes, lizards. They're here. They are not trying to take over the planet, but they're just kind of beautiful beings, and appreciate them for what they are.
Right.
And not, and I know people, because I have a lot of animals. I know lots of people with pets of all kinds. People who have um, are reptile enthusiasts, and they love their pet snakes and they love their pet turtles and um,
Herpetologists.
herpetologists, but even just reptile enthusiasts. Like it's just their thing, and then they it's just a different kind of life form. It's not something that's necessarily negative.
Yeah.
Although we tend to go the negative route when we're talking about reptiles, and to some extent amphibians as well.
Well, yeah, reptiles are a very cold animal. I mean, they're fairly devoid of emotion. They just are what they are. I used to own like anoles. I had an iguana at one point. They don't care. They're animals. Whereas with some of your more fuzzy animals, like your mammals, you can get some type of a bond with just about anything. Whereas with your reptiles, I don't think you can. And people who say that they do, I'm sorry, you're full of shit. Like it looks at you like, this is where I get my food from. They're warm, whatever the case may be. Reptiles are not nowhere's near the same as your other types of pets. But hey, if that's what you're into and that's what you like, cool. Very cool. I'm not. Don't like them. Not into them. Not my thing. Don't like holding snakes. Not even the small ones. Not my thing. Not for me.
Right. But I think through time, though, my point being is that humanity and the reptiles haven't always, we as a species seem to want to have some kind of emotional connection with with our animals in our environment, and you just can't have that with a reptile, and so we make it something negative.
Right.
And we are saying that they are the more negative species. Well, they're just something that's living here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. They are what they are. They're just another creature living on the fucking planet. Not my favorite creatures living on the planet. I think a lot of the lizards look really fucking cool, and you get some really cool variations on these lizards. Chameleons, very interesting creatures. Monitor lizards, just these monsters. The real big ones. And their bite literally it kills you because of the fucking bacteria that grows in their mouth. It's not like they have any toxins or anything. There's just so much shit in their mouth that if they bite you, you will die from the fucking bacteria, and they will just track you for days. They'll just wait.
Yep.
And they'll just slowly fucking follow the scent because they can smell the fucking your flesh, the bacteria in your flesh, and they just follow it and follow it and follow it until they fucking eat you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the diversity of the planet is really one of our most amazing things, and yet some of our endemic species or local species, out of of reptiles, out of fear, we have destroyed. And you and I live in New England. New England used to be a place where we had something called the timber rattlers, rattlesnake. And in my great grandparents' generation and before that, they were common to uncommon, and then in the 1900s and beyond, in my state, they have basically gone extinct. And it's be out of fear because they are a poisonous creature. And but if you can stay away from the bite, they are relatively easy to capture and kill.
Right.
So I think in New Hampshire might have one location left of timber rattlers. I don't even know if there's any left in Maine, and there may be only one or two sites in Massachusetts. And some people are going to say that's a good thing because we rid our environment of a poisonous creature. But on the other hand, we took out a whole species out of an ecosystem.
Right. Yeah, and was that a wise thing to do?
Yeah, I mean,
well, and that's the thing. Like when human beings do shit like that, we don't think of the long-term consequences of it. It's just short-term.
Yeah.
Short-term. Like I read something recently about they created a bacteria that eats carbon dioxide and changes it into something else, and I'm like, but where does that lead? Like where does that wind us up? Then these are the questions that I have when it comes to those types of solutions. Like, is this just going to be a fucking knee-jerk reaction that's going to fuck us up even more in the future? Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you said, we share the planet with some amazing creatures, and I think a lot of times we often try to fantasize up things that don't need it. I mean, this whole idea of reptilians living among us, like, people are complex enough as it is. We don't need them to be reptilians too. People are fucked up. People do fucked up shit. People are fucked up to each other. People are cruel. People are nice. People are fucking horrible. People are benevolent. I mean, you don't. I just don't think you need another form, of a secret society of insidious human beings that aren't human beings, within the caste structure. It doesn't need to be there. It makes for great science fiction. I mean, hell, I'd read that shit, especially if it's written well. But as far as it being an actual thing that's happening right now, I don't buy it. I think people are just fucked up. People do fucked up shit for their own ends and their own needs, or for ends and needs that are just aren't necessarily fucking good at all or decent or whatever.
I mean, people can be greedy without being an alien crossbreed.
Fuck yeah.
You know?
And we can all be greedy. And I think that's the thing people fail to realize a lot with these, people who are larger than life. It's like half the time, if they were in these same positions, they do a lot of the same shit. They'd make a lot of the same mistakes. They do a lot of the shady bullshit. But that's the thing. I think that a lot of this stuff shows people like the darker side of themselves, and then they don't like that. And that's why they recoil from it.
Yeah, it's hard to understand there's an aspect of yourself that can be cold, calculating, and based on your own self-sufficiency, which are, a lot of what they ascribe to the cold-blooded reptile.
The reptilians.
Or the straight-out reptilians, dragon beings,
But at our core, we're a survivalist species. We are. That's what we are. We're trying to live, and we will do amazing things to try and survive. So it just, like I said, at our base things, we're all fucking animals. So I guess in and of itself, maybe we are kind of reptilian. Because at our base, we're just animals.
Well, right.
But I don't think that we're fucking reptilians in a suit. I think that in and of that, we're just like, to a degree, our nature is cold and calculating and survivalist in nature.
Or at the very least, we have an aspect of that.
We wrap it in a fucking morality. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer to that is.
And that said, I think that dinosaurs are absolutely cool. Like when I was in second grade, I was fascinated by dinosaurs.
But the idea of dinosaurs, see, when I was a kid, dinosaurs were giant lizards. Okay, that's how they were portrayed. That's how we saw them. Giant lizards. Now, when I think of dinosaur, I don't even know what to think of. For one, like there's no like overall consensus. I mean, there kind of is, but there kind of isn't. So now we think that they're more like birds, and that they were feathered, and which actually to me is cooler.
So you mean I had a Thanksgiving dinosaur on Thursday?
Fucking right, turkey. Yeah, it's probably like a fucking velociraptor at one point. They say chickens were pretty fucking brutal at one point. I mean, chickens are though. Chickens, them little motherfuckers.
I grew up on a farm. Some of them do look like little dinosaurs.
But they'll eat anything.
Yeah, some of them.
You can fucking throw a fucking mouse in there, and they'll fucking tear that thing apart.
Yes, some will.
Yep.
Some of the more heritage breeds that have been like raised to be very self-sufficient and forage, they will eat mice if they can catch them. They will eat all kinds of bugs. They will just go off and do their own thing and have their own little families, and they don't want to stay in their chicken coop, and they will become feral, and they can't last the winter outside in the Northeast, like where we live, but down in the South, like in Florida, like Key West is famous for having feral chickens running around because they are a tropical animal, or at least a subtropical animal.
Right. And they've got to stay warm.
They got to stay warm. But you stay warm, they will just do their own thing.
Yep. Yeah, and I didn't realize like how brutal chickens were until I knew a few people that had chicken coops, and they're fucking crazy animals.
Well, they instill their own hierarchy when they are in a chicken coop, and if there is a real true meaning to being at the bottom of the pecking order. You will be pecked, and those chickens at the bottom of the pecking order lose all the feathers on their back. Like they are constantly reminded that they are at the bottom.
Yeah, and that's just it's it's that way with a lot of things too. I mean, a lot of creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And so in our own way, where we're talking about, there's some, lizard people species doing crossbreeding on humans, but in reality, humans are doing crossbreeding on chickens and trying to make chickens more domestically production feasible and breeding the wildness out of them.
yeah, well, we
And among other
do it
things,
with everything.
with everything. I mean,
With
we need to look at
everything.
ourselves as the ones who are doing some of that genetic manipulation.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I often think that when we look for the demons out there, we need look no further than the mirror. Like a lot of the things that we want to demonize or find something else to blame for, we can oftentimes just look in the mirror and see
Mm-hmm.
the demon staring us right back in the face. And a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
for our own personal bullshit too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we want to be like, oh, it's the fault of most of the time you look in the fucking mirror, it's the fault of the fact that you're being a lazy ass, or you're not doing this, or you're not doing that, or whatever the case may be. But
And I
I
think it's
think we
a
do try to create these, like I said, these insidious characters, like reptilians.
well, I think it is a mode best used as a mode of self-reflection and a mythic. I love my mythic archetypes. It's an archetype of evil, can be.
Yeah.
It's stories that help us look at our own behavior and understand um our own place in the bigger picture of things. And
Well, look at all your, your archetypical like stories of heroes or whatnot. They're all very similar.
mhm,
Overcoming some great foe and, you
mhm,
know, gaining some great wisdom or riches or whatever the case may be.
mhm,
You know, but we do create these symbols, or like you're saying, these archetypes
mhm,
of things.
mhm,
Um, and I think for these people that are into this, that the reptilians are that thing for them.
mhm. Yeah.
That's that symbol.
Yeah. It's interesting, and then this is like a slight tangent, but we're tangenting. Is that many reptile species can reproduce through parthenogenesis, which is where the female eggs are viable and she doesn't need a male to fertilize them, and she kind of produces just kind of lays eggs that are clones of herself.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
whole species of lizard
Yeah.
where that happens, and the way they get genetic diversity is that there's whole sections that are just female,
Hmm.
and they have outlying areas where there are males,
Right.
and the males are able to get in, and that's how they get their genetic variation, is that every so often they will mate with a male. It's very weird. It's some fucking
And
wacky shit.
and I think that is just like kind of blows my mind, like that we have a concept that you need a male and a female as the
Yeah.
standard way to reproduce, and there's species out there where the primary is just female only reproduction with
Well,
occasional.
in that species, there are still males, and they can
Mhm,
still mate with a male. It's
mhm,
only when that's not available that they
right,
will reproduce by, basically, like you were saying, by cloning themselves.
right. Well, there's some insects that do it that way as well.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, there's some weird shit that goes on in the
Mhm,
animal kingdom that
mhm,
a lot of people are very unaware of.
right. Well, I mean, and I think that's kind of like, like snails are hermaphroditic, and so they are
Mhm.
both male and female. So you get two snails together, both are male and what we would consider male and female, and um they mate, but they exchange both male and female stuff, and it's kind of like, oh, so that that exists in nature, and that
Yeah.
is, quote unquote, a natural thing,
Yep.
where our society sometimes frowns upon, but although it's becoming more open about it, people who express themselves as both genders.
Yeah.
But there is a whole nother animal species where that is a kind of a normal thing.
Yeah. There's all, like I said, there's all kinds of wacky shit that goes on.
Mhm.
You
So,
know,
I mean,
I can remember being told by, you know, people in my family, you know, that homosexuality doesn't exist in nature. Fuck you. Like,
oh,
like, fuck you.
it absolutely does. And when you raise sheep, like my family raised sheep for a while, some of the the literature out there will say that maybe 10% of your rams could have um, essentially homosexual tendencies and may
Yeah.
not want to breed your ewes. Like,
Yeah.
so
And it happens
it happens.
everywhere. You know, it happens all across the board. And for people to think that it doesn't is it's just fucking stupid.
Yeah, our nature, the natural world is far more diverse and varied than we often.
Well, and that's another thing that I often think of when I think of these things where people have to have these fantastical, you know, things like reptilians, is that if you start looking into the natural world, there's so much crazy shit out there. Like there's real shit that's crazier than reptilians. Octopus. Them fucking things are far crazier than any reptilian you could fucking show me.
Yeah, they are interesting, smart, and yet so unlike human beings.
Yeah.
You know that they can like get in a jar and then figure out how to unscrew the lid of a jar. They
Yeah.
crawl out of their tanks when they're in aquariums. They know how to change their body coloration, and they seem to do it somewhat consciously.
Hmm.
Really, really strange. I'm not so worried about a lizard person, but an octopus person
Oh
that's
yeah.
like semi-amphibious or can go in like totally change their body skin and like become very that might be something to be really afraid of. I don't know.
Yeah. The shit they find in the oceans, the new types of creatures that they find in the oceans, you know, microscopic life is fucking crazy. You know, I used to love like just looking at shit underneath a microscope. One of the things I'd done with my daughter early on in life is I got her a microscope and we went and grabbed some friggin' pond water, you know, and took a look at it. And it's just it's unfucking real. What is out there that you can just look at and see? And it doesn't like you don't need like a fucking microscope costs shit, you know, to go out and pick up a cheap one. You know, and you can look at some of the wildest shit you've ever seen in your life on a fucking slide
Hmm.
in a drop of fucking water.
Yep.
You know, I mean, because I remember when I saw it when I was in school, and it was one of the things that I'd wanted, you know, my kids to see, you know, to be
Hmm.
able to check out. And so,
Hmm.
you know, I had done it, and there's just so much out there that you can go out and actually look at and see, or even like now with the internet and you know YouTube, you can friggin' you want to watch fucking baby whatevers. There's probably a fucking live cam somewhere. You know, that's the other thing. Like, I think the time of zoos is over. Like, or it should be over. Like, let's, you know, have the researchers set up fucking live cams somewhere. People can watch them. You don't need that shit anymore. You don't
Hmm.
need to put them in cages. I mean, look at what it's done to the, you know, what places like SeaWorld has done to, you know, dolphins and killer whales. I mean, these fucking amazing creatures that are insanely smart,
Hmm.
you know, and being put in what amounts to an aquarium, you know, for them.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I think that people just need to realize that there's so much amazing shit out there. You don't need this, and I say that too on on the 40 and slip a lot because we have to have all these fantastic creatures like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness monster and chupacabras and all this other bullshit. And while I think that there may be some validity to some of them, albeit some of them also I think are misidentification. I think there's just much more wild, wonderful shit just that's real out there that you can go check out and look into.
Yeah. I mean, I think zoos are, in some contexts, valuable because they educate people about that exact diversity that you're talking about. Like, and there is something magical about, like maybe going and seeing a panda that you would maybe never really see unless you went to China, or you could see it on a camera. And that's a species that has needed some real help in propagating the species because they are so slow
Well,
to mature.
I think
And
with
in
technology though, Holly,
yeah.
like I think especially with like virtual reality technology,
Hmm.
I think that idea of, having to go and see these things, I think it'll be able to go away. You know, because I think
I think I agree.
once
Long term, it'll
virtual
be.
reality gets to the point where you can't really tell the difference, or like,
Hmm.
you could get into it and then you're just like there and you can
Hmm.
look at this thing.
Hmm.
Because like you were saying, and that's what sparked me to think about that, was that you were saying like it helps because people can go and look at it. And you're right, because that's what people like, because then it's tangible. But I think with the way they're developing virtual reality, like
Right.
people will be able to put on that headset
Hmm.
and go to that place,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think zoos have been a place, the good side of zoos, and I don't think, I think it's one of those things where you have to really talk about captivity and
Oh, it's double
being
edged.
able, double edge, and how animals are being taken care of. You know, I got for the few times I've been to zoos, I have gotten so much exposure to rare creatures that I had no idea existed. Um, that I would say is a benefit, but it is in giving some very rare species some um, help in perpetuating those species. Like the pandas are one, and there's some other, snow leopards are another really rare species that their populations are so low in the wild that they need some protection and they need some help. You know, that has been helpful, but only if they're getting the care that they need. They're not being exploited.
Hmm.
Um, and certainly like big animals like orcas and dolphins, can you truly keep something that big safely in captivity?
I don't think so.
You know?
I don't think so anymore.
Yeah.
I just, it's a crazy idea.
Hmm.
And especially because they're so intelligent.
Hmm.
Like I mean, that's the reason why I say that. It's the intelligence factor of these creatures,
Hmm.
and the fact that they have their own languages. And then when they put all these creatures together in these basically aquariums,
Hmm.
um, you know, they don't have a lot of space, and they might not be from the same pod, so they don't understand each other.
Hmm. Yeah.
It'd be like sticking, eventually they'll be able to understand each other, but they can't at
Yes.
first.
Yes.
So they're having to deal with that. These aren't other whales that they know. Like those are all the things, and I just don't think that it's wise anymore. I think that it should end. I think that those types of things should end.
Hmm.
Um, there's,
Yeah.
like I said, there's enough people that are out there researching these creatures in the wild, that if you want to see them, there are ways to see them. And I think that,
Hmm.
like I said, with virtual reality and things like that, that whole idea of needing to be there will go away.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, the other part of that is, humans may be the biggest source of polluting their environment. So,
Yeah.
their
But I mean,
wild
could you imagine
environments.
like putting on a virtual reality helmet and fucking like being like the dude in the water swimming next to the fucking whales?
No, that would be amazing.
Right, like, you just
Yeah.
basically, like, experience that. That would be
Yeah.
some cool shit. Yeah,
Absolutely amazing. I'm not disagreeing with that. I
uh,
think that we need to like understand how we protect our species diversity on the planet, and and their environments. And we tend to destroy things and not always know what's living there. And certainly there are some species.
Hey, we got to put up those new developments, Holly.
Like octopus and dolphins and whales that are sentient in extreme.
Jeff Bezos needs to build a new fucking warehouse, Holly.
I know. Oh my God, yeah. Because we're gonna sell everything through Amazon. Pretty soon we'll be putting the whales and the dolphins on Amazon. Because you can sell everything there.
It's crazy. I mean, we're a creature here on the planet too, and the more and more I look at things, it's like we're here and we do shit. Yeah. Do we pollute? Yeah. I mean, but it's gotten to a point for me now, like human beings suck. Could they do better? Yeah. But it's what they're doing. They're here, and they're technically part of the natural world too.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to that whole George Carlin thing of, maybe people are here to make plastic. Like that whole bit that he does of, the world's gonna fucking be here long after us, people.
Yeah.
Long after us. We're not gonna destroy the world. We're gonna destroy us.
It will destroy us, and we're going to blame it on the reptilian overlords.
That's right. To bring it back around. But
yes.
I gotta wrap up the show today, Holly.
Me too. I was trying to get a segue there so we could.
Hopefully we can. We'll get this set up at a time when we can run it a little longer. But Holly and I will discuss that and what we're gonna do as far as time doing the live show on YouTube. And I'll try to post it so that everybody knows. But until then, this has been Slip Into the Night, episode 13. Ugh, got something in my throat today. Hope everybody.
Do you have a lizard in your throat?
I have a lizard. Yeah. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. And my choking on my own phlegm there. We will be back next Saturday. Time to be announced. Like I said, Holly and I will discuss that, and I'll let you guys know. And we will come up with a topic before then. Until then, I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving and has a great weekend. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.